Good morning and Happy New Year to everybody. I just felt like being silly this morning. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to United Kitchens. We are on USA Global TV, and I am Ricki Mckenna, and I've been a certified nutritionist and chef for 23 years, and I don't usually cook with a Happy New Year hat on, so I'm going to take it off. But I just wanted to wish everyone a very happy and healthy new year. The whole point of being here is to understand what food really is and does for you. At least that's from my perspective as a chef and as a nutritionist. So welcome to USA Global TV's United Kitchens. And we will have some other celebrity chefs with us. Yesterday, I had a very interesting person come on the show. She's actually going to be my realtor now. And she was wonderful. You can connect with me at rickiskitchen.net. That's RICKISKITCHEN.net. That's my website. Or you can find me on USA Global TV at our YouTube channel. So welcome. And Happy New Year, as I said, and we're going to get started with something that I actually made and took to someone's home for our New Year's party. This is another one, but we're going to do today a pork tenderloin that is going to be seared and herb crusted. So with that, we'll get started. I took a pork tender. The full tender was about another half as big, but since there are only two of us left to eat this, I'm going to make just this half, which is about a half a pound, maybe 3/4 of a pound. And so the first thing we're going to do is actually chop up some leeks to go around it, because leeks are one of my very favorite vegetables. Now you can do leeks, or you can do something like little red potatoes, which is what we did yesterday. Make sure your leek is clean and that you cut into it to make sure that all of it doesn't have any sand or dirt in it, even if it is organic. And this does still have a little bit left. So I'm going to give it a little bath, and then we'll cut it up, both the green and the white parts, and just surround the pork tender with that in the dish. So I'm going to give it a little more washing here. Since even if it is organic, I don't particularly care to eat the dirt. Yeah. And I think you can see what I'm doing. I'm opening it so that it gets down into the leaves. There we go. That should do it this time. That's one thing about leeks. Be very careful to get through and wash them thoroughly. Okay, now we can chop up and have a go at it. What I'm going to do is just make rounds. And of course, I'll split them in half. And let's see how we do this. You can, as I say, you can do this with onion. You can surround your pork tender with any other vegetables that you like. I know a lot of people like to have carrots and celery and that type of thing. And actually with the pork tender, I really love the leeks and sometimes fennel. That's another way to do it. But this recipe is for the herb crust, which we will take and do in just a moment. So I'm going to take my baking dish, an appropriate size for this, and scatter all these wonderful leeks chopped up in here. And I've got a surprise for you, because in addition to something like parsnips or carrots, or as I said, carrots, celery, that type of thing, or little potatoes, what I'm going to use today are chestnuts, roasted chestnuts. And I found these roasted chestnuts in a Costco store, actually, where they came in these wonderful little packets that you can see. And they're all shelled and ready to eat. Perfect. So I'm going to scatter those around. There's just about enough for 2 or 3 people to eat as an accompaniment to the tenderloin. I'm going to put a wee bit of olive oil in there just to kind of grease the bottom. And I may put a little bit of water in as well before we roast it. So that's ready. That bed is ready to receive our tender. And now we will prepare the rub for the tenderloin. And we've got a combination of wonderful ingredients. First of all, I'm going to use about a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to actually put that directly on, just a teeny bit, the tender. And by the way, when you're doing something like this, when you're searing a meat, make sure that you have tongs or a tool that's long enough, because you're using such a high heat to sear the meat. You want to have tongs that are long enough so that you can turn the meat and control it without getting your hand burned. Very important point there. So I'm going to turn this over and sprinkle a little bit of salt on the top and on the bottom. And the rest of it goes into the rub. Okay. And some fresh ground pepper. And you might be able to see the dish that I have because I've already got some rub left in there from yesterday, and we're going to add just about the same amount. And if you have enough rub left over, what I suggest you do is get an empty spice jar and keep it in there. It'll stay beautifully. So whatever we have left over goes in there. We're going to use the salt and pepper. Our next ingredient is oregano. You can use fresh dried or just dried oregano. About a teaspoon of each of these ingredients. We're going to use about an equal teaspoon of each. If you prefer one thing more than another, for example, I happen to love thyme, we're going to use the thyme, a little bit more of that. And of course, we're using the granulated garlic. And we will use some fresh garlic, which I'll chop up in a couple of minutes to put in the pan when I sear the meat. And if you're not familiar with searing, searing is a technique that at high heat, you definitely use a high heat to sear a piece of meat, whether it's chicken or pork or beef. But the searing helps to lock in the moisture so that when you cook it, the outside is kind of crusty and it keeps all the moisture within the meat. All right, I'm going to add a heaping teaspoon of thyme because, as I said, I love thyme. And you can tell I'm careful with my spices. I like them in glass because glass is inert and it doesn't add anything unwanted to it, whereas plastic sometimes leaches things. All right, we're going to also add cardamom, a teaspoon of cardamom, or excuse me, coriander seed. That's coriander. And some cumin. So we have oregano, garlic, coriander, cumin, and salt and pepper. It just makes an absolutely delicious rub. And you can use it to season other things as well. So there we have all those things in there. And where's my little baby whisk? Here we go. And we'll just make sure that you mix everything thoroughly, the rub. And of course, you've already washed your hands because that's what we're going to use to rub the pork tenderloin. So we'll just make sure that everything is well mixed in here. Now the pork tenderloin has been washed, of course, and I dried it off just with a paper towel. But now putting the salt on it is going to bring up some moisture. So this is going to be absolutely perfect. And we'll just take the rub with my hands that are dry. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit and then actually pat it in. And I'm going to get it all over the sides, the end. That's the nice part about cutting it, because you can get it at the end as well. I'm going to, whoops, dunk it there. Make sure we pat it. Kind of push it into the meat so that it thoroughly gets in there. Let's roll it over. When they say rub, they mean kind of pat into. And if you've used a rub before, you know what I'm talking about. It just pushes it into the meat. Let's make sure we get some on this end. Here we go. Okay, and now for the fun. I'm just going to put a little bit on this side too, because I missed. Here we go. And let's see. Let's give them a bit of a wash. That's better. Okay. And now we're going over to the range, and I'll show you. We're going to add a little olive oil to the pan. So here's our dish that's ready. And we're going to take the pan and turn it on to high. And I'm going to add about a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil. Here we go. And I'm going to clear things off because, frankly, it does splatter. So I want to be sure to have, as I said, that nice long pair of tongs to work with. And we're going to let that heat up for just a minute or so, depending on your range. It will heat up quickly or not so quickly. This takes just another couple of minutes, and as I said, it's on high. And I'm going to put it down just below, so it's on high but not quite tip-top high. And in the meantime, I'm going to take my garlic. Just a minute, we'll come back. And I'm going to take a couple of nice cloves of garlic, fairly large, because we do like garlic, and give that a chop. So it'll go in the pan with it. That is, if I can, there it is. And as you can see, I've already got the peeled garlic, which is much easier to work with. And we'll have that just minced up in a minute so we can put it in. But you put the garlic in just before you take the pork loin or the meat, whatever you're using. You can do this with beef as well. You just put the garlic in for just a couple of seconds, and you'll see how fast it browns at the end of browning and searing the meat. So there we are. We're ready with the garlic. It's about a pretty good sized tablespoon. And we'll just leave that here waiting for us while we put the tender in there, and I'll get back there and show you how that works. You can see the oil's hot because it's rolling around a little more. I'm going to grab my tongs. So we will carefully, now be very careful when you do this because it is on high heat. And so we'll take our tender and just put it in very carefully. You can see it start to sizzle almost immediately, and I'm going to just cover that up with the rest of the rub. You can see it starting to sizzle. Now you're going to get some heat and you might get some smoke. So let's be aware of it. And I've turned on my fan, my vent fan. If you, as most of us do, have a smoke detector in your kitchen, don't worry about it. As long as you put your vent fan on, everything should be fine. So we're going to let that start to really get hot. And when I turn it over, you'll see how it's browned. and it's seared, which is sealing in the juices. Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to take my prepared dish. Oops. And I'm going to put in just a little bit of water. I'll be back there in a second. Just to make sure. I'm adding just, maybe 1/8 of an inch of water to the bottom of the pan. I think you can see the water swishing around in there. And have your good old baster handy. Ah, now we're getting it. There we go. Now you can see what I was talking about, if you can see the smoke. And hearing it sizzle. And I would keep a rag or something handy if you want to, but you can always clean it up later. Let's see how we're doing here. Ah, beautiful. I have to turn it up a little higher. That's how we sear it, so we get it to the point where all the sides are, all of it, absolutely all of it is heated up. In the meantime, I'm going to turn my oven to 450. And I had a comment the other day from someone who said 450, isn't that kind of high? Well, once you've seared the meat, it is going to go in the oven for about 20 minutes. So the searing of the meat will take us about 10 minutes. I'm going to turn my fan up a little higher because we are getting smoke. But don't worry about it. The house will not go on fire. Just be careful to make sure that you get that all sides seared well. And of course it is cooking while it's doing this, so you'll only need 20 minutes in the oven. Ah, you can see, I want you to see this side just a little more brown, and it'll sear a little more on the top, and then we're going to do the sides. This is why I wanted you to make sure you have long tongs so you don't get any splashes from the hot oil. And I don't know if we have any comments or questions. I can't really see. But please feel free to comment. And let's see what we have here. We're sealing the meat by searing it. Sealing in the juices. So I'm even going to stand it up on its end for a second. And the sides. So you can see that we're basically searing in all that wonderful juice in the meat. And we'll have it in just a moment. And you can probably hear the fact that I turned the vent fan up a little bit more. All right. Okay, and right about now, we're going to take that wonderfully chopped garlic and just put it right in there. And watch how fast it browns. Okay, we are done. Okay, let's get back over here. Woohoo! Oh my goodness. Okay. Whoa. So we've got this wonderful olive oil. It's going to go all around with the garlic. Big dip. Well done. And actually, I think I'm going to chop up a little bit more of the garlic. And it sure does smell good. So here we have our ready to roast tenderloin. I'm just put in a couple more pieces of garlic, one more clove because we happen to like that. So I will chop that up and just add it to the pan and our chestnuts and the leeks. And then we will put that in the oven for about 20 minutes. So what do we do while that's in there? Well, I thought this morning or evening, afternoon, wherever you are, let's get our fresh garlic in there and just sprinkle it around a little bit. And we'll pop it in the oven. And as you notice, I popped it in uncovered. Once it starts to really, it's only going in there for about 20 minutes. So you don't really have to worry about it. And the one thing that I did not put into the rub this time was my fresh rosemary. So I'm going to add a little bit more to the roast itself. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take it out. And I think this, since it really hasn't started to bake yet, I love fresh rosemary. So we're going to add about a tablespoon of the chopped up fresh rosemary from the garden. And of course, you know how to strip the rosemary. So we'll just have a quick lesson in that. What you do is hold the top and bring your fingers down and pinch, and off come all those beautiful rosemary leaves. So actually you can use some other fresh herbs to chop up if you like, but this recipe is really simple with using the dried herbs and just the fresh rosemary, which of course adds an absolutely marvelous aroma and flavor to it. I think we've got just about enough there. Okay. You will give that a chop to release all the juices and make it work with the rest of the rub. And this will add an incredible amount of flavor and marvelous aroma to your roast. So we've sealed in the juices by searing it and sealed in the juices and the rub so that it's nice and crusty on the outside and it will be tender on the inside. And if you want to use a thermometer to test it, that's perfectly fine to test when it's done. But what I have found is that in a 450 oven for 20 minutes, especially a small piece such as this, that it looks perfectly well done. Okay, we're going to scatter the rosemary, and I'm going to press some of it right into the meat. There we go. And every bit of that wonderful rosemary. I think I'll use this. Actually, it's not bad. And my water has gone all through the pan, so I have enough of the water and the oil underneath that it won't stick, but it's going to create an absolutely marvelous flavor. And your whole kitchen and your whole house will smell absolutely wonderful from all these goodies. By the way, you can see I've planted my rosemary in a glass, which goes right in the refrigerator. And I've got some fresh parsley that we can chop up and get ready to use as a garnish. Or you can use it whole and just make the plate pretty when you serve it. I'm just going to roughly chop it up and get it ready. There we go. And of course, these go into a smoothie because I don't like waste. And using every part of the food if possible. So we will have, here's our parsley that's ready. I'm going to take this and put it aside. And now, so while the meat is cooking in there, I'm going to add that to the rest of the rub. And actually, I'll show you how to get the rub into the empty. Empty. There it is. If you have a funnel, now is the time to use it. Let's see, where's my favorite little funnel? Here it is. One of the handiest gadgets you'll ever have in your kitchen is a funnel. Now this one has a fairly small hole, so I'm just going to take the rub and a little teeny bit at a time and sprinkle it in there. And give it a little help getting through there. And then our surprise recipe will go into the refrigerator and grab out some cranberries. Nice, fresh, organic cranberries, which make an absolutely wonderful accompaniment to our pork tenderloin. Okay, here we go. And so that gives us, about a good heaping tablespoon and a half in there. So now I will take a piece of tape, clear tape, and write onto a small piece of paper what's in here so you know what it is, and then put it in your, wherever you keep your spices. Okay, and if you'll excuse me for 2 seconds, I will grab out my cranberries and we'll go from there. Ta-da! One of the easiest things to make is cranberry sauce. And it's kind of like applesauce as far as I'm concerned, because it's very simple. And basically, well, with the cranberries, all you do is wash and put them in. With apples, you have your choice of either not peeling, which I choose to do, or scrub rather than peel. And with the cranberries, we're just going to select a few that don't look too pretty as I put them in a big strainer so we can wash them. But very often you'll find there are 1 or 2 that are a little on the wrinkly side, or they're not just as pretty as the others, so carefully remove them. So we'll go through and make sure that everything is clean. Yeah, looks pretty good. Any strings or anything like that that you don't want to be in there, I think we've got it. And I'm just going to poke through a little bit more just to make sure, because you don't want any sour cranberries in there. They're quite bitter by themselves. And I'll mention something in a minute about the sugar department. Well, let's just give them a wash. Here we go. And since you're going to cook them, you can use warm water or cool water. Take your choice. Just give them a good shake. And let's grab out a pot. Now you want a pot that has enough room. And this one is a 2-quart, so we're going to use this. I think we'll have enough room in here. And I'm going to put in about 3/4 of an inch of water on the bottom. Not much more. So that's about a little over a cup. Just for fun, we'll measure it. And I know people are interested in the measurements. So let's see if how close I was to a cup. I think I'm a little bit under it. Yep, I am. About 3/4, well, not much. Okay, so we'll put a cup of water in there. And now we'll put in our cranberries. You don't want to completely cover the cranberries because otherwise you'll have cranberry water rather than sauce. And I might even take off a little bit of this water. Go back to just under a cup. And that's actually, I'll tell you, I think that was a 12-ounce package. Yeah, 12 ounces of the fresh cranberries. And now I'm going to take this and put it on here. There we go. So we'll put it up on high heat and cover it. Now, if you notice, I haven't put any sugar in yet, but actually I think I'll put the sugar in now and let it blend. And actually, I'm going to use a little bit of monk fruit as well as sugar. All right, I've got my monk fruit. Now, most of the recipes on the back of the cranberry packages call for a cup of sugar, but frankly, I think that's way too much. So, let's see what this is. Interesting. They don't have a recipe on here. But most of the cranberry packages that you'll get in the stores will have a recipe that calls for 12 ounces of berries and a cup of sugar. I would prefer to use about half a cup. So in that case, I'm going to take my little quarter cup measuring. Actually, I'll use my half cup. And oops, just about 4 ounces, and sprinkle that around. There we go. Now you can use sugar. You can use granulated sugar. You can use turbinado sugar, whatever you prefer. And I'm not going to mix with that. Let's just give this a little mix and get the sugar in there, in the water. Pretty well mixed. It will mix as it cooks. And I'm going to cover that up and not mess up my flowers. Now keep an ear open for when it starts to boil, and an eye as well, because it will start to bubble up. In the meantime, I'd just like to share my book with you, which has some of the recipes in it. It is available on Amazon, but if you want the spiral version, please get in touch with me at rickiskitchen.net, where you can order the book online there from me directly. Otherwise, you certainly are welcome to go to Amazon and order the paperback version or the ebook. So this is actually my second book, and it includes about 30 recipes. I'm not sure if I don't remember if the cranberry sauce is in there, but it's so simple. As you can see, it's just basically cranberries, water, and a little sugar. And the idea is to keep an eye on it. What I will add is some fresh orange. And instead of the water, actually for cooking, sometimes I use orange juice or even lemon juice, which is much more fun because you have a sweet and tart combination of flavors. And you'll have to watch very carefully because once it starts to boil, it will boil over very quickly. So meantime, I'm going to take a look at our little tender that's in there and see if our juices have started bubbling. Once the juices start bubbling, then you know it's almost done. And even though it's up on 450, which should make it bubble sooner, sometimes it doesn't. But be aware of the bubbling, and we'll get it done and show you how pretty it is on a plate, on a clean plate. In the meantime, I think I'll have a sip of my coffee in my favorite cup, which says Cake Whisks, which is one of my little sayings. And I do have an apron that I'll show you in just a sec. And when I take the tender out, I don't like to put a raw meat or even a cooked meat on my wooden chopping top. So I use a silicone board, or you can use a wooden cutting board, whatever you have, whatever you prefer. And so we're ready when that little goodie comes out of the oven to set it down. Aha! I don't know if you can hear it starting to boil. Shouldn't peak. Okay. Let's see. Okay, oven and baking. This is my next favorite apron. Besides the Cake Whisks, this one says everything tastes better with bacon. And of course you can see the cupcakes. So these are available on my website, on rickiskitchen.net. You'll see them indicated in there as Ricki's Kitchenware. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear this, but the cranberries are starting to pop. It's almost like listening for popcorn. So be careful when you take the top off, because can you hear it? I don't know if you can hear it popping, but that's what you want to watch for. It's starting to boil, so I'm going to turn it down to medium high and just listen for it. It's almost, as I say, it's almost like having, making popcorn. When you hear it start to pop, I have an old-fashioned popper where you put the popcorn in and turn the handle and it circulates the popcorn. And of course, the kids used to love to hear it pop because then they knew it was really going to be popcorn. So once that stops, then you know that your cranberries are done. That's all you have to do is let them cook to that point. And then we'll take them out and I'll show you what we'll do with them. I'm going to take an orange, which has already been washed, and in with the cranberries, if I can find it, I have my potato peeler. This has already been washed, so I'm going to take about a 3-inch slice of the peel and put it right in there with the cranberries. And be careful at this point because they are popping, and now they're boiling. Okay. And we'll just add that in for some flavor. And most of the cranberries have already popped. So we're just going to let that cook for another 5 minutes. As I said, I turned it down. I'm going to open it a little bit and let it reduce just a bit because I think I put a little bit too much water in. I prefer more cranberries than water. So I'm going to let that reduce with the top off and check on our, we have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to take a peek. Ah, beautiful. Okay, I'm going to turn it and let's see if I can turn, I don't think I can turn the, let's see if we can do this. There. Make a little camera adjustment so you can see. And I'm going to take the juices with my baster and give everybody a bath. There we go. So basting usually gets your vegetables done beautifully. And of course, my chestnuts are loving this. Here we go. Okay, that's really all it needs. And we'll finish up in another 10 minutes and then I'll show you how to cut it. In the meantime, we've got our cranberries going. I'm going to take my pan, which is not a non-stick pan, and here's another lesson. You can see where it's browned. It's got all the burnt stuff in it, and it's no longer hot, which is an important point because you don't want to put especially cold water, into a hot pan because it will possibly warp it, even a good one. So let's turn this back around so we get, there we go. And I've got my orange ready. So I'm going to take the orange and cut off some garnishes. I'll cut it at the end. There we go. Now I have taken a piece off of it, and you could use orange zest as well in the cranberry sauce, but just that little bit of orange will make a big difference in the taste. So I'm going to take my orange and cut it in half, and then get the slices ready to surround the pork roast. The combination of the cranberries and the orange is just such a wonderful flavor combination, especially around holidays, or even obviously after the holidays. And as I said, for New Year's Eve, I had made one of these, and we took it to a friend's home for dinner, and it was a big hit. So if you want to make a hit with people, as I say, you can use a pork roast or you can use a beef tender, whichever you prefer. And we have our oranges ready. I'm going to take these two pieces of the orange, just little ends, and I'm going to squeeze it into the cranberry sauce. I would have put it in, but the orange zest or the peel would make it a little more bitter. So I've left that out. So I'm going to take this piece, add a little more juice. Okay, and it is reducing so that it won't be too liquidy when we fix it. Now I'm going to get my orange ready. We'll just get our serving plate ready here. And this is just a little one. And spread the orange. There we go. I have the rest. And I'm ready to take the roast out when the oven says it's been in there for 20 minutes. And actually, I'm going to take the cranberry sauce now, which is really just about ready. It's good. It's boiling down. Now, there's two ways to do this. You can keep the cranberries whole, which I like to do, and I usually use something like a potato masher, or you can use an immersion blender, whatever you like, or you can use a whisk. Today, I'm going to use a whisk because I just want to chop it up lightly. I want the whole berries so people can really taste it. And I'm going to grab out a nice glass dish in which to put it. And of course you can serve it hot, but it's much more fun when it's cold in contrast to the meat. So we'll get that ready as we have our plate ready for the tenderloin. We've got our garnishes right here. And I'm going to give it a little bit more time to cook and break down some more of those berries. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to take my whisk and chop it up a bit. Very simple. And you can see that it's getting thicker. That's what you want. When the water and the cranberries start to thicken, that's perfect. Because unlike when you make certain things like jelly, if you were going to make cranberry preserves or jelly, then you would add something like pectin, but it's not necessary to do that to get it to thicken. I'm going to turn it off and let it come down and cool a little bit by itself. And I'm going to give it a quick taste while it's hot to make sure that I have enough sugar in there, to make sure that it has enough sweetness to where it's going to be a nice contrast to the herbs, to work with the herbs. But be really, really, really careful Because as I say, it's boiling hot. We'll just let this cool for a second. The power of your breath is wonderful. And if I showed you this, let's see if we can show it a little bit closer to the camera. You can see it's thick. And that's what you want. It's a natural thickening between the cranberries and water and the sugar. Ooh, that's tart. So what I'm going to do while it's warm is take some regular granulated sugar and, where's my other spoon? Put a couple of teaspoons in. Not a lot. Because believe it or not, that does, well, we'll go for 3. And mix it in while it's hot so it does get all through it. And what I don't really know the answer to this, but I'm wondering if different batches of cranberries are more tart than others. Here's a question for us to ponder. And I can find out the answer for next week. I have my doubts. I think they're all probably about the same. But let's see. Let me get my tasting spoon and see how much that added. It may be just enough. I'll let it get in there. I hope everybody had a happy new year, and we're going to keep you healthy with all the goodies that we're making now. That was just enough. Perfectly lovely. Now, here's not the hard part, but the easy part. Letting it settle down and cool by itself in the pot, I would carefully put it in this bowl, which is a Pyrex bowl. And here, we'll pour it so you can see how thick it is. And of course, you don't really have to add anything else to it unless you want to. We'll just get it. And I will wait for it to cool down, probably about half an hour, 30 minutes, and let it cool down out of the refrigerator, and then put it into the refrigerator. And you will have definitely thickened cranberry sauce. And then I will add even a little bit more of the orange. What I've done years past is, excuse me one second. There we go. What I've done in years past is added, we could take the orange and chop up some pieces of orange or little mandarin oranges. Absolutely delicious with the cranberry sauce. My mother used to add pineapple, and she'd chop up pineapple into little bite-sized pieces. So we'd have that with the cranberry sauce mixed in with it. So you get a variety of ways to use cranberry sauce. And they're all fruity and add wonderful complementary flavors to your meats. So, and we're keeping it healthy with the fresh oranges and the fresh parsley. And here's our tenderloin, which I will remove from the oven, remembering to turn it off. And as I said, it's pretty well cooked in the 20 minutes that it's been in there. And I will put the cranberry sauce there to cool down. And get our, I'm going to put the meat right there, right on top of the orange. So here we go. And let's see, where are my tongs? All right. Now I'm going to let it sit in there for a minute, but actually we'll have the vegetables ready. I'm going to take my meat out and let it sit there on the cutting board while I get my veggies. Here we go. You can add a little bit of white wine or red wine, depending on which you would like, or you can just get the veggies, take them out of this pan. They're definitely done. The chestnuts are beautifully roasted, and so is the leek. And let's get a little, I'm going to move my little guy over. And we'll take out the veggies. You can hear it sizzle. Okay, and I'll get the cranberry sauce out of your view in a minute. I want to get the rest of the veggies out here. There we go. We want to make it pretty. Okay. All right. There we go. Now I'm going to take my parsley and sprinkle a little bit on top right now. As you can see, all the chestnuts are ready. And everything is in place. I hope everybody can see that. There we go. I'll put the cranberry sauce over here and bring it so you can see the plate. And then I'll take, whoops, I'll take my meat. I'm going to start cutting from the large end, but I'm going to cut it on the diagonal and turn it over so that it actually works beautifully that way. Okay. Now let's see how well we did with the cooking. You can always put it back in, but it's much more fun if it's done the first time. There we go. I'm cutting about 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch slices or 1 centimeter slices. And it's juicy, absolutely wonderful. That's the reason for the searing, so that your meat stays juicy. I know I've said that a few times, but I really want to impress upon you. That's the way to cook it. And there we have it. And we'll take these. This is more than enough for a serving. So I'm going to put these carefully on the plate. There we go. And we have the small end here. We might take a few more little pieces, 1 or 2. And I'm going to drench those in the juices here. Just move things over a teeny bit. And there we have it. I think I'll just add a couple more slices of orange. Little slices. Because we do eat first with our eyes. And here you have it. I'm going to go to the other camera for just a second so you can see it up close and personal, as we say. You can see how pretty this really looks. There we go. The meat is still steaming, as well as the beautiful finished vegetables. And so there you have your seared and herb-crusted pork tender that makes an absolutely marvelous lunch or dinner for you or for company, or all of the above. So with that, please remember to join us again. I hope you have a very happy and healthy new year. And join us again the first Friday of every month for United Kitchens on USA Global TV. And in the meantime, go online, look up USA Global TV, watch the videos, and you'll pick up the recipes there as well. And the recipes are always found on my Patreon page, which is patreon.com, that's patreon.com/Ricki's Kitchen, RICKIS Kitchen, and you'll see all the recipes posted there. And with that, I wish you a very happy, healthy new year, hearty appetite, and come back and see us again next month. Thank you so much. And by the way, I just graduated as an elevated listener from Dr. Jacqueline's course, which is absolutely marvelous. If you haven't signed up for it, do yourself and everyone around you a really good favor by listening to that course, and take the course, and you'll be very, very happy that you did. So in addition to our kitchen, we have elevated listening as well as elevated and elegant cooking. So thank you so much. Hearty appetite, and have a blessed month. Bye now.